People say your entire life can change in a single moment, but 19-year-old Andre Walker never imagined his would begin with a broken-down sedan, a shaking pair of wrinkled hands, and a decision made in the span of 3 seconds. On that gray Monday morning, he believed the most important hour of his life was waiting for him inside a tall glass building across town. He was dressed in his best thrift store suit, his resume neatly pressed and tucked into a folder he'd been checking every 10 minutes. Today was the interview for the internship he had dreamed about since high school. Today was supposed to be the day everything finally turned around. But fate has a strange way of testing people. Andre's bus had dropped him off 2 blocks from downtown Cedar Heights, a small city with quiet neighborhoods and a downtown that tried to feel bigger than it was. The sky was thick with clouds, threatening rain. Andre walked fast, glancing at his watch as his heart thumped from nerves. He replayed interview answers in his head, forcing confidence into every imagined sentence. This internship at Hartwell Innovations wasn't just an opportunity, it was a lifeline. With it, he could finally step out of the cycle he had grown up in. Without it, the future felt like a fog. He was halfway across Maple Street when he noticed her. An elderly woman stood beside a faded blue sedan pulled over near the curb. Her gray curls shook as she leaned against the car door, her breath uneven, her eyes frantic as she searched through her purse. One look, and Andre knew something was wrong. He should keep walking. He knew that. He had 20 minutes left, just enough time to check in early like he planned. But something about the fear in her eyes slammed into him harder than any sense of responsibility he had to himself. Her hand trembled as she pressed it against her chest. Andre stopped. His chest tightened in conflict. His dream was right down the street. But this woman, she looked like someone who desperately needed help. He jogged toward her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked, lowering his voice. The woman looked up, startled yet relieved. I don't know. I got dizzy. My heart, it doesn't feel right." Andre's pulse jumped. "Do you need an ambulance?" She nodded weakly. He helped her to the passenger seat, fumbled for his phone, and dialed 911. As he spoke to dispatch, he kept looking at his watch. Every tick was a punch to the gut. "The ambulance is on the way," he told her softly. She tried to speak, but her voice caught. "Thank you. I didn't know what to do. I'm Margaret. Margaret Lowell." Andre gave her a reassuring smile. "I'm Andre. Just breathe slow, okay? Help is coming." The minutes crawled. The ambulance took longer than he expected. He wanted to run, to sprint toward that glass building and beg them to understand, but he couldn't leave her. What if she collapsed again? What if she stopped breathing? What if leaving her meant she never made it? He stayed. The paramedics eventually arrived, checked her vitals, and loaded her into the ambulance. One of them asked if he was her grandson. "No, just someone passing by," Andre said. "You saved her morning," the paramedic replied. "Maybe more than that." Andre forced a smile, but inside, dread crushed him. He checked his phone, 10:42 a.m. His interview had started 12 minutes ago. He could still try to explain, but he knew what companies were like. They had other candidates. They had schedules. They had zero patience. Still, he ran. He sprinted down the sidewalk, breath burning in his chest, suit soaked with sweat and mist from the air. When he finally reached the front desk of Hartwell Innovations, the receptionist offered a polite but distant smile. "Interview for the tech internship?" she asked. Yes, Andre gasped out, "Please, I'm sorry I'm late." There was an emergency, an elderly woman. But she was already shaking her head. "I'm sorry. They've already moved on to the next applicant. They're fully booked today." Andre stood there, chest rising and falling, pain filling the empty spaces inside him. He wanted to argue, to beg, to explain every detail, but the receptionist was already on the phone with someone else. He walked out slowly, shoulders heavy, heart heavier. Outside, the rain finally started. Andre found a bench beneath a thin tree and sat down, letting the drizzle soak through his clothes. He stared at the sidewalk, wondering if he had just thrown away his only chance at breaking the cycle he hated. Helping Margaret felt like the only right choice in that moment. But now, sitting alone in the rain, he wondered why doing the right thing always seemed to cost him the most. 5 hours passed. 5 long, heavy hours. The sky began to clear, the streets dried, and Andre finally stood up, deciding he should go home and start planning what to do next. But before he could take more than a few steps, a sleek black SUV rolled slowly toward the curb beside him. The back door opened. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped out, his presence commanding, his expression unreadable. His eyes locked on Andre with a seriousness that made the world around them seem to pause. "Are you Andre Walker?" he asked. Andre froze. "Yes, who are you?" The man stepped closer. "My name is Daniel Lowell. I'm the CEO of Hartwell Innovations. And you're the young man who saved my mother's life this morning." Andre's breath caught in his throat. The CEO of the very company he had sprinted toward that morning was now standing 3 feet away from him, speaking as if he already knew everything. Andre blinked, unsure if his exhaustion was making him imagine things. "Your mother," he said quietly. She's okay." Daniel nodded, but the sharp lines in his face softened. "She's stable. She insisted I find you the second she woke up. She said she wouldn't rest until I did." Andre's legs felt weak, like the hours of worry and disappointment were finally crashing into him all at once. I'm glad she's doing better. I didn't do much. I just called for help." Daniel studied him for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion but in a way that felt like he was trying to understand him deeper. "My mother said you stayed. Most people don't stay. She said you gave her comfort, talked to her, didn't leave even though she kept insisting she'd be fine." Andre swallowed hard. "Well, she looked scared. And nobody should be alone when they're scared." Daniel took a step closer. "Then my mother wasn't wrong about you." The SUV door opened wider, and a driver stepped out, but Daniel motioned for him to wait. "I came here to ask you something directly, face to face," Daniel continued. "My assistant showed me your file. You were scheduled for an interview at 10:30 this morning. You didn't show up. They marked you as a no-call, no-show." Andre's stomach twisted. "I know. I tried to explain, but they didn't listen. I get it, though. I was late. That's on me." Daniel let out a slow breath, almost a sigh. "Tell me what really happened, Andre. Every detail." There was no anger in his voice. No corporate sharpness. Just a man trying to understand why someone would give up an opportunity so important for something they owed nothing to. Andre hesitated, unsure how much to share, but then he looked at the man's face and saw something surprising: sincerity. So he told him. He described the moment he saw Margaret struggling beside the car. The panic in her eyes. The way she tried to wave him off even while she clutched her chest. How the ambulance took longer than expected. How he couldn't walk away even though every minute felt like a piece of his future was slipping through his fingers. Daniel didn't interrupt. When Andre finished, he felt strangely empty, as if speaking the truth had released everything he'd been holding inside. Finally, Daniel crossed his arms. "You put a stranger above your own future. Do you understand how rare that is?" "I don't know if it's rare," Andre said softly. "I just did what I'd want someone to do for my grandmother." Daniel stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Get in the car, Andre." Andre stepped back. "Sir, I don't want to cause trouble. If this is about the interview." "It isn't," Daniel cut in. At least not in the way you think. I'm heading to the hospital to see my mother again. She wants to meet you. And after that, you and I are going back to my office. Andre's eyebrow lifted. Your office? Yes, Daniel said. Because whether or not the hiring board sees it, I see something in you. And something my mother said made my decision for me. What did she say? Daniel's expression softened. She said, Daniel, the young man who held my hand today has more heart than anyone you'll ever find in a resume stack. Don't let the world beat that out of him. Help him become the kind of man the world needs. Andre's throat tightened. I owe her everything, Daniel continued quietly. And she believes in you. So I'm going to give you what you should have gotten this morning. Andre's eyes widened. You mean? Daniel nodded once. The internship. If you're willing to take it. Andre's breath hitched, disbelief flooding him so quickly he had to steady himself. Yes. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Good, Daniel said with a small smile. Because a person who chooses compassion when it costs them something is exactly the person I want in my company. The driver opened the door. Andre climbed into the SUV, still shaky, still unsure if this was really happening. Daniel got in beside him. As the car pulled away from the curb, the world outside blurred, but Andre felt something he hadn't felt in months, hope. The drive to the hospital was quiet but warm. Daniel asked him about his interests, how he got into tech, what his goals were. For the first time, Andre didn't downplay his dreams. He spoke honestly, openly, and Daniel listened. When they reached the hospital, Margaret was sitting up in her bed, her cheeks flushed with relief and joy when she saw him. There he is, she said, stretching her hand out. My guardian angel. Andre smiled shyly and stepped closer. You look a lot better, ma'am. Because of you, she whispered. Daniel watched the two of them with an expression Andre couldn't quite read, something between gratitude and pride. After a few minutes of conversation, Margaret pulled her son closer. You take care of him, Daniel. Good boys are hard to find. I intend to, Daniel said. Andre felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. He wasn't invisible. Someone saw worth in him, someone powerful, someone who could change his life. As they left the hospital and stepped back into the bright afternoon air, Daniel looked at him and said, This isn't charity, Andre. You earned this. Not with a resume. But with character. And character is what builds a future. Andre blinked against the sun, the weight of the moment settling into him like a promise. Thank you, sir, he said softly. I won't let you down. Daniel smiled. I know you won't. Now let's go start your future. And as they walked toward the waiting SUV, Andre realized something he would remember for the rest of his life. Sometimes the path you think will ruin your future is the very thing that leads you to it.